Good afternoon and welcome to Zoe's Educational Slot. Today we'll be talking about nutrition. So my guest and I will be having a great conversation around nutrition and the impact it can have on the body. So without any further ado, I'd like to let my guest introduce herself. So my guest today, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey, Sylvette. Yes, I'm Kate Chesser. I'm a registered nutritional therapist and have been for several years now, but I've had a big interest in nutrition since 2005 when I had to completely revamp what I ate due to a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis. So yeah, been in the world of nutrition for a long time now.
Fantastic. So let's just get to it because obviously both of us are quite passionate about nutrition. So I'm going to fire some key questions at you to get this debate going, because it's something that you and I are both passionate about. So the first question that usually I get to ask is, as a nutritionist, how do you educate your clients on the benefits of a good diet?
Okay, yeah, so this is a great question. I mean, generally speaking, an overview is one that's made up of whole foods. So i.e. as little processed and packaged food as possible, food that you actually know what it is. And that includes plenty of fruit and vegetables for your fiber, good quality proteins like fish, chicken, seafood, chickpeas and beans that are going to keep you full for longer. High quality fats like olive oil, flaxseed oil, that's found naturally in foods like avocados, nuts and seeds, fish. Good foods that aren't going to spike your energy so you then crash down, and we all know what those are. It's the crisps, it's the chocolate, it's the stuff that we it's too easy to reach for when our body's craving something.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, so that, which I know you're truly passionate about as well, when we've talked about this before, it's just enjoying food.
Yes.
Eating together, enjoying making it, enjoying eating it with your family and friends when we're allowed, and sharing it. And you said the whole experience of eating is all part of what is a good diet.
Fantastic. I speak to a lot of clients that suffer from gastrointestinal disorders like IBS, Crohn's, celiac. What steps can they take to reclaim aspects of their life or reclaim their life in general?
Yeah, so I mean, this affects so many people. I mean, the stats for IBS are very high. At least 1 in 5 experience IBS. So those sorts of conditions, they affect us mentally, emotionally, physically. So the first thing to do is any change in your digestion, obviously is going to see a doctor, because just to get something diagnosed or rule out anything else. But then it's finding foods to eat that really sustain you, really nourish your body. So firstly, finding foods that aren't going to cause any inflammation in your body, that aren't going to aggravate the symptoms that you might be experiencing. Gluten and dairy are the first two that spring to mind, as most people. In fact, I've yet to meet anyone who hasn't benefited in some way from avoiding these foods, and regardless whether they've been diagnosed with something or not. I mean, generally, they cause inflammation in our body. When you've got these sorts of things going on, you want to reduce the inflammation. Then it's a case of, I'd always recommend testing, because finding out what's really going on, because you could cut out foods unnecessarily that you don't need to. And then when you know what's going on and what's causing the issues through tests, and these could be stool tests, so examining the bacteria in your gut, and they could be blood tests, what food is or isn't missing, what nutrients is missing from your bloodstream, aren't you digesting? Because when you test, you don't need to guess, you can actually solve the problem much better. And this is something you can if you know that foods some trigger you, just cut them out.
Absolutely.
And then slowly reintroduce them as and when. Things like gluten, as I said, I'm not sure you need to. Most of us are going to be impacted, and our digestion is going to impact most of us if we eat gluten. It's not good for our digestive system at all, our body goes into an immune response, and that's why we get all the symptoms that we get. So then cut the trigger foods out and eat the good foods that are going to feed the good bacteria, really nourish your body and help you repair any damage, and so then you can absorb the nutrients properly. And your body can really benefit from them.
I don't think a lot of people pay attention to the impact gluten and dairy actually can have on their body, and it's so refreshing to hear someone actually explain things that that's common knowledge but people don't pay attention to, because usually when people have gastro problems and they know gluten is a trigger, they often say, oh well, if I have a little, nothing happens, and if I just continue on that path, then my symptoms, I know it's quite bad, but I can still kind of plod along, not realizing that the damage that they're doing. So it's actually quite good to hear you say that.
No, absolutely, because honestly as well, and I mean, as we know, there are some amazing foods out there. You don't need to eat gluten. But you don't have to cut out food groups.
As we know.
Yeah, exactly. There's all sorts of alternatives, and just better, that are far more nutrient dense than, say, the wheat that is in the bread, in the pasta. That really, of course, there's some good stuff in there, but you can get that good stuff from other
products,
food sources,
such as cassava, like I've been telling people.
Oh my gosh, honestly, and it's so good as well. And you wouldn't, it's delicious. Your food is wonderful. I've had the pleasure of experiencing it. So, but the good, the whole foods, the snacky type foods as well, where you just want to reach for something. You can definitely avoid it, the gluten, and it really damages your gut, and your gut lining gets into your bloodstream, causes all sorts of immune responses, and then if you keep on doing that, the knock-on effect,
let's talk about stress. So because we're in the pandemic, everyone's quite stressed. Let's talk about mindset. Let's talk about the impact that can have on the body in relation to diet and nutrition. Because I think everyone's thinking, right, we're in a pandemic, we locked down, everyone's going for different things mentally, physically. Can you just talk through how nutrition can actually impact, or how stress can impact your diet?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can talk firsthand about this. During the pandemic, I couldn't help myself. I'm out of it now. Reaching chocolate, and it starts off as a little bit. And honestly, by lockdown 3, I was like, oh my goodness, the bars weren't big enough. I was like, and what happens is our body is stressed, the fight or flight response kicks in, and and that means we want to get ready to run or flight. We want to take off, we want to go. So our body immediately craves sugar.
Yes.
And so it could be sugar for some people it's salty food. So we make bad food choices, or the wrong, we don't think it through. And and it's not just a case of, you were just stressed for a moment, like back in the day when it was a saber-toothed tiger. This has been going on all year. So, this chronic stress all year. So we're constantly reaching for the chocolate, the crisps, the coffee, the wine, the bread, there's things that's going to give us a quick fix. So that's the first way it impacts us. Secondly, so when we're stressed, everything goes into survival mode, which is what we need. That's what we want. But then our digestion shuts down. We haven't got time to digest our food, so we don't digest it properly. And that's, literally, we can either lighten the load and, can create urgency, diarrhea, the need to go, we all know what butterflies in our tummy feel like, and quickly need to run to the loo. So we don't absorb the nutrients that we need to, because the digestion shuts down. Then that leads to fatigue. So then again, we crave for the caffeine, the sugar that's going to bump us up. It's just it's the ongoing stress that then has the long-term impacts of digestion. And yes, it's all right for an afternoon, but the ongoing stress of lockdown that we all experience, can carry on
So
Yeah,
the
like I
next
say,
question I want to talk about is autoimmune diseases such as lupus, MS. I mean, you talked about MS. Can you just tell us
yeah.
how can food groups actually help with autoimmune diseases?
Yeah, so this is a great question as well. And this is where I first started. So likewise, it's the whole food. It's the foods that our body recognizes as food. If you reach for a packet of something, there are all sorts of ingredients on there. You don't even know what they are. You know, just I mean, you can't say them, let alone know what they are. In fact, somebody else he said, that's not food. That's a chemistry experiment. And
Thank
just
you.
mean, yeah. Whereas if you eat the whole food and your body recognizes it, loves them, it feeds all the good bacteria in our gut. That in fact is where about 70% of our immune system lies. So if we're feeding the good bacteria and nourishing our digestive system, feeding it well, then it reduces the inflammation, because this is what happens with the autoimmune conditions. So for example, you eat the food, inflammation occurs, you eat the wrong food, it gets through the gut lining of the wall, creates leaky gut. I'm sure that you've heard of and spoken of this before, which then gets the immune system going, and it starts attacking this food that's in our bloodstream that shouldn't be, because it's not being digested properly, and it goes on constant alert. So for example, with MS, dairy is a trigger. So it sees the dairy, comes in, starts attacking the dairy because it doesn't recognize it as food, because it's not been broken down properly and digested properly. And the makeup of dairy has the same protein structure as the myelin sheath, which is the coating that surrounds our nerves.
Yes.
So not only does it attack the dairy, it attacks the myelin sheath as well. And that's what leads to MS. Likewise with rheumatoid arthritis, confuses different foods, and it goes on the attack, and it starts attacking the synovial fluid around the joints, which is why you get inflamed and painful joints. And it's the similar triggers: gluten, dairy, high stress, sugar, all these things which you can address by cutting them out and eating the good stuff, the good fat, the good protein, the delicious fruits and vegetables.
I think it's really informative that how making such simple changes in your diet can actually change so much of your life. And I think that's what resonates with me when it comes to food. And that's why good food is important. It's about the impact it has on your body. So I'm so happy to be able to sit and talk to you and have this conversation about why good food is important in nutrition, but the impact it could have on the body as well. So thank you for taking the time. Any tips? We've got a couple more seconds. Any more tips you'd like to give the audience?
If the biggest one I would give, especially if you do have gut issues, any digestive issues, try the gluten-free. Just cut it out, easily done. See how you go with that. And I almost challenge you to see if you don't notice an improvement in your symptoms, however big or small. But yeah, that would be a little tip and a bit of a challenge, really.
And can I just say, I concur. I totally agree, because obviously I have a gluten-free diet. I have seen the changes. I've seen the impact. I'm also dairy-free. So it's great actually seeing the impact. The entire family is gluten and dairy-free. And it's absolutely phenomenal how clean our diet is, but most importantly, how healthy that we are. So it's great testimony to what we can do for other individuals out there. So Kate, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today.
It's been a pleasure.
Have a good day.
Yeah, you too, Savette. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.